On today's show, the Capitals fall to the Jets in overtime, but Alex Ovechkin scores a goal, bringing him just 5 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky's record.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the latest with Jakob Chychrun as he signs an 8-year extension with the Capitals. He will be here in the long term. And is he going to be a replacement for John Carlson? I'll talk about that a bit later. We'll talk about what needs to improve. Listen, the Capitals are playing very well, all things considered, but some things were made apparent in the game tonight against the Jets. What are those things? But just to get it going here, we'll talk about the Capitals as they fall to the Jets in overtime, this time up in Winnipeg. And kind of reminds me a little bit of the last time that the Capitals played the Jets. And you can tell why both of these teams are where they're at. 2 really good teams. And, you take a look at it. What kind of series would that be if the Capitals faced a Jets-esque type of a team? I think oftentimes as Capitals fans, we look at our team with Capitals colored glasses on and are like, they're infallible. They're bulletproof. There's no team that could touch us. Well, what was made apparent tonight is that the Capitals do face some stiff competition, that things will get exponentially harder once we make it to the postseason. And when you face a team that is quick, when you face a team that has a great netminder, but all things considered, I'm not going to bang up on the Capitals too much. It was a loss, and they ended up picking up a point, so it was not a complete loss, shall we say. But let's do that. Let's dive into the latest with your favorite team in mind, the Capitals, as they fall 3-2 in OT in Winnipeg. And I've seen several games up in Winnipeg, and every time I've gone to a game there, it has not gone well for the Capitals. It is a small arena, and it is a very loud arena, and it is a fan base that truly loves their team. But, you take a look at it, had it not been for Alex Ovechkin and his late game heroics, well, the Capitals would have lost in regulation. So a tip of the hat to Alex Ovechkin. And when, he scored the goal and the other players skated around him, motivating the troops, let's go. Oftentimes on this show, I say, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. The look of surprise from Spencer Carbery on the bench, looking at his assistants going, wow, we did not see that coming. And to be clear here, even just watching the game at home, I was kind of preparing myself, talking to everyone here about how the Capitals lost in regulation. They still ended up losing, but picking up a point as they battle for that President's Trophy position is still there. And, I heard Alan May talk about it and Joe B. They were talking about, we don't really care too much about the President's Trophy. I mean, you kind of do, but, you take a look at historically the teams that win the President's Trophy that go on to win the Stanley Cup. It's not always something that you really want to talk about. But standout performances. Let's talk about the standout performances in this game, particularly from Connor Hellebuyck, the front runner for the Vezina. We know that Logan Thompson is number 2, and we see why he is the front runner for the Vezina. A brick wall in net at 6'4" and maybe taller than that. He is a formidable opponent. He was a brick wall for the first 2.5 periods, making it tough for the Capitals to find the back of the net. And, you take a look at it, those inside analytics that I talk about that sometimes don't make sense. The two players for the Capitals that scored in the game tonight are the two players that historically have scored well against the Jets, but more specifically, Connor Hellebuyck, that in Andrew Mangiapane and Alex Ovechkin. So it's interesting why that is. But then late in the third period, Ovechkin does what he does best, made his presence known. As he can smell that Wayne Gretzky record at this point. He scored a crucial goal, tying the game at 2-2, and facing OT. And the game was there for the taking for the Capitals, but got a little bit disjointed, a little sloppy there, and all of a sudden the Jets skate away in victory lane. And, like I say, it reminds me a bit of the last time the Capitals faced the Jets, that you do need to be prepared. And when you make it to overtime, you need to do it. And with the Capitals, they did get some shots in OT, but ultimately not enough. But talking about the big man, number 8, marked Ovechkin's 36th goal of the season and his third goal in just 5 games. The runway is getting shorter and shorter. Can he do it this season? That is the question. He's now sitting at 889 for his career, just 5 away from tying the all-time record and 6 from surpassing. Now, you take a look at it, a goal here, a goal there. What could be a game changer? Scoring a hat trick, which, is kind of out there. 2 goals in a game. The flip side of that is also him going a couple of games not scoring a goal. So I think that, this whole Alex Ovechkin goal chase has ebbed. It's flowed where it seemed like it was a lock that he's going to do it really quick. The initial projections here somewhat, recently here were April 10th against the Canes, but it is a bit of a moving target. Do I think he can do it this season? I do. But there's also certain scenarios where it's a possibility that he might not. But let's talk about the scoring breakdown in Andrew Mangiapane, who was, especially chippy, especially in a bit of rage there as he was cross-checked, boarded, if you will, to the boards, and then he cross-checked back. And I think there was a bit of a history there. Where it got kind of a bit out of hand on Andrew Mangiapane's part is the player was down on the ice and he was still going at him. Those are the things that kind of cross boundaries sometimes that I think, kind of as a code, when the player is flat down on the ice, that's enough. That is sometimes the knock that you hear against Alex Ovechkin in that whole Svechnikov fight so many years ago, is that you could tell that he was knocked out. He was falling down the ice, and Ovechkin got one more punch in. That you got to kind of respect the bro code, or the hockey code, if you will, that when a guy is, in a position that he's down and out, I think you got to pump the brakes a little bit. At least that's my take on it. On the Capital side, Alexei Protas stepped up as well, extending his point streak to 5 games with that assist on Ovechkin's goal. But taking a look at Andrew Mangiapane, his line was effective, yet they only managed to light the lamp once against Hellebuyck. And, you take a look at Andrew Mangiapane, making it interesting. I'm talking here briefly about Ryan Leonard when he joins this team, that Andrew Mangiapane has been playing a bit later as of late, that ultimately who's going to come out of the lineup. I think that Mangiapane realizes that he really needs to put the pedal to the metal if he wants to continue to have a job on the big team. So quite impressive. His 3rd goal in as many games. So Andrew Mangiapane getting it done. So big things for the Capitals. And, you take a look at it. I think that it wasn't for a lack of trying. I think the Capitals did their level best against the Jets team that had a lot of pushback. It was the Jets playing at their home barn, and ultimately, why they are, right up there with the Capitals. The Capitals are edged out a little bit, but then you take a look at the Jets with winning tonight, that it is definitely neck and neck on who is going to win the prestigious President's Trophy. Despite what Joe B and Alan may say, I think it would be a nice banner for the Capitals to raise up to the ceiling of Cap One at the end of the season. So at the end of the day, I'm not too down in the dumps on the Capitals. They made it to OT. They picked up a point, but some things that need to get worked on, that is for sure. And what are some of those things that the Capitals do need to work on? I'll discuss straight ahead. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast, easy? Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. So if you are involved in the hiring, if you are involved in the firing, I do a bit of that at work, and let me tell you, it's stressful finding the right candidate. And then when you hire them, all of a sudden they say, I don't even want to work here, and paper applications. Take the confusion out of the whole HR experience with Indeed. And now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show, Locked On Capitals, by saying you heard about it on this show. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this next segment here, we're talking about things that need to improve for the Capitals to have success. And, success is something that hasn't been elusive to this year's Capitals team. They have played well. But with that said, there are still some things that they need to work on. And if you are an everydayer of the show, I've talked about special teams, and that is coming to the forefront now. If you remember the beginning of the season and preseason, I talked about special teams in those preseason games, how it gets more and more important. Well, that is coming really into focus now as we head up to, we're coming up to the end of the season here. So let's talk about that. Special teams concerns, and more specifically on the PP. The Capitals struggled yet again, failing to convert on any of their opportunities. They're currently 0 for 16 on the power play across the last 9 games. That is not a key for success. And what I'm talking about here is that the Capitals, you can't live on a record. You can't live on standings. It has to go game by game by game, because like I say, let's be real here. If the Capitals did face, it wouldn't have, let's say they faced the Jets in a hypothetical situation. Say it was the Capitals facing the Jets in some form of the playoffs. How do you think they would fare? Do you think that they would find a way to win the series, or do you think that they would lose? Just based on what we have seen from the Capitals versus the Jets this season, we know it's tough. So those are the things that they need to button up to win the games. Had they scored a power play goal or 2, well, that could have been all the difference in the world for the Capitals. They may have skated away in victory lane. Those are things to think about. Now, also defensively, the Capitals faced some challenges too. The first goal allowed was a result of a deflected shot by Josh Morrissey, and Mason Appleton's goal late in the second period capitalized on a critical defensive miscue. And I understand, they're not robots out there. They are hockey players, and they are prone to make mistakes. And that is what happened. But those are the things that really need to get battened down before the Capitals make it to the playoffs, because the Capitals, they've played well during the season, but, they are going to face teams that are going to kick it in high gear once we reach the postseason. The Capitals will as well. They just really need to be prepared. Now, to be clear here, when I'm finding flaws with the team, there's not a lot. If you listen to this segment in a vacuum, you'd think that Dan was hating on the Capitals. Quite the contrary. But I think that if you are going to assess a team and success or anything, a business venture, you need to look at the things that are working, and then you need to look at the things that are not working and address those things. So those are the things that are coming into focus. I'm talking here about those defensive challenges, the miscues, making it to overtime, and whoop, that got away from us in a hurry. And also on the power play, all things to work on. And also you take a look at Logan Thompson, stopping at 22 of 25, but it wasn't enough to grab the win. And you could tell Logan Thompson is a great netminder. Again, most people revere him as number 2 in all of the National Hockey League and Vezina voting. But you could tell just based on, his body language, based on, us trying to read his lips, that he was disappointed that some of those goals got in. That I think that, some of them were deflections. The one goal in particular, I could tell he did not see, period, because he was screened. But there was some of those goals out there tonight that I think that he would like to have back. And ultimately, I like that. I like that Logan Thompson cares. And ultimately what has put him in the position that he's in right now as one of the front runners as the best netminders in the entire NHL. But, otherwise you just take a look at it. It is the physicality. It is Tom Wilson as well. Is that, he spoke about it as much as that he is better served now, and he's realizing this as a 30-year-old man. He's better served right now to be out on the ice helping the team score goals. He's a 30-plus goal scorer this year, that he's better off scoring goals than, trying to take a guy down, getting in a fist match. That's not, there's a time and a place. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you perceive that a guy is cross-checking you or another guy on your team, or they're taking advantage of a player or yourself in some form or fashion, then address it. But try to do it prudently and try to do it when the moment calls for it. You don't need to do it at any given moment. And I think that is one of the things that the Caps need to work on as well. But taking a look at this game, all things considered, the Capitals were generating chances. It did appear that at points in the game, the Capitals were spending too much time in their own end. So those are the things that need to get worked up. So to summarize this, I'm talking the power play. I'm talking defensive woes. I'm talking about keeping your attitude and your emotions in check. Again, that is another thing that is going to get drawn into focus in the postseason. Did you see, I forget the name of the player that, Mangiapane and the other player got into that fist fight there, that when both of those players were in the penalty box, the guy was laughing at Andrew Mangiapane. So there are a lot of head games, and we're not privy to a lot of the things that are said out on the ice to draw that kind of response. Again, Andrew Mangiapane, if we want to talk here briefly yet again here to circle back, talking about how you got to keep your attitude in check. The guy was laying out on the ice, and you were still kind of jabbing at him here a little bit. So those are the big things. Attitudes need to be even keel, and just make the most of your opportunities when given them. When you're on the power play, that is served up on a platter to find the back of the net. You need to do just that if you have bigger plans of making a deep push in the postseason. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the biggest news of the day. I'm going to go ahead and say the biggest signing for the Capitals during this season. I know that Logan Thompson's up there. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Chychrun deal is even a bigger deal. I want to hear your thoughts on Twitter, on YouTube. Let me know. But in my opinion, the biggest deal for the Capitals this season is Jakob Chychrun signing that 8-year extension with the Capitals. And is he the answer for John Carlson when he hangs up the skates? I'll discuss straight ahead. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is, next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. I took their quick quiz. In under a minute, they matched me with a roast that was fresh, smelled incredible, and tasted, well, even better. My first bag was a game changer. It had such a smooth, rich flavor, and I could actually taste the difference from my usual coffee. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. All right, in this next segment here, we're talking about the big news that should have you as Capitals fans pumped. If there is one player that I've heard a lot about on socials, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or whatever the case might be, is when is Jakob Chychrun getting a new deal? When is it going to get done? And, my initial thought on it was it was something that wasn't going to happen until this summer, because it almost seemed like his representation, his agent, was trying to squeeze as much money out of the Capitals as possible, because he is having, well, a career year, putting up some truly great numbers. But that was the news that broke, well, about mid-morning today. An 8-year extension signed with the Capitals will be here for the long term. And already people saying, oh my God, 8 years and a lot of money. Listen, that is the price of doing business in modern professional sports. You take a look at the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal. He signed an 8-year deal with the Kings. You take a look at Logan Thompson. That was a 6-year deal. Matt Roy, a 6-year deal. Tom Wilson, a lengthy contract. That is how these contracts are going nowadays. Now, not any player can pull that card. You have to be an elite talent. Jakob Chychrun is that. And, at the end of the day, you could have came to Chychrun and said, hey, how's about signing a 4-year deal at a reduced rate? And he's probably like, I might try my luck in the open market this summer. The Capitals, they see what kind of player they have. Again, if you're an everyday of the show, I said I don't think the Capitals should be too thirsty when it comes to Jakob Chychrun. There's got to be a weakness in his armor somewhere. I haven't seen it. A great goal scorer, a great defender. Does he make gaffes here and there? Yes. To circle back to what I've said before, he is human. He's not a robot. But all things considered, Jakob Chychrun has been as advertised. And they got him for, I hate to say it, in my opinion, next to nothing. It was Jensen and a draft pick to the Senators for Jakob Chychrun. Quite a thing that the Capitals were able to pull off. And, to be honest with you here, Jensen has been playing splendidly for Ottawa as well. But let's do that. Let's dig into the nitty-gritty and the latest with Jakob Chychrun and the really big news that came out today. Now, Tuesday morning, just before the team hit the ice, the Capitals announced the contract extension with Jakob Chychrun. And, it's just talking about the money of the players, talking about National Hockey League players, that at least one player taped or pinned a $100 bill to his jersey on his back. And they wrote 72 on his helmet in reference to his new contract, $72 million. I think that is like a fever dream for most of us making that kind of money. But if there is a guy that is deserving of $72 million, well, Jakob Chychrun is one of those players. More specifically, that's an average annual value of $9 million, making him the highest paid defenseman on the roster, even surpassing the big man, number 74, John Carlson, at $8 million. And one of the things that, I've mulled over here quite a bit is the extension and the term. 8 years, that's a long time. But you take a look at John Carlson. John Carlson is 35 years old, still putting up big minutes. It's kind of like a car, an older car, still real reliable, can take your cross country. But at 35, that the odometer, as far as your NHL life is concerned, is getting up there. Jakob Chychrun at 26 years old, he's got less miles and in some ways a similar player to John Carlson. So did they already kind of foresee the changing of the guard? We know that Alex Ovechkin is going to be stepping away ostensibly after next season. And John Carlson at 35, that's on a bit more of the distant horizon, if you will. But talk about a commitment from both the organization and Jakob Chychrun, and just a really low-key guy, doesn't seem to get too caught up in this. He seems to be kind of, I hate to say it, almost hippie-esque type attitude. Like, last summer they were talking about, he said, I want to get a deal done. I don't want to sit here worrying about where I'm going to be playing in the fall. He trusts his agent to make a good decision. That's ultimately why he's here, and he didn't get too caught up. And kind of tipped the hand a little bit there, as it was said that owner Ted Leonsis was walking around in a Jakob Chychrun jersey, and Jakob Chychrun saw that. And you got to be thinking to yourself, I don't even have to be real smart here. I'm not saying that he's not, but even a person of, average to below average intelligence could say, hey, the owner of the team is wearing my jersey. I'm probably not going anywhere. So just quite a thing for Jakob Chychrun, and a nod to his teammates. Chychrun expressed his gratitude to the Caps organization and his teammates, highlighting the camaraderie in the dressing room as a huge reason for the decision to stay with the Capitals. Again, the locker room, I talk about that all of the time. Something that you can't easily quantify is one of the things that endeared Chychrun to the Capitals. And also Chris Patrick, this is him, bam, putting his stamp on the team. You want a big move? I got a big move. It's Jakob Chychrun. Logan Thompson and Chucky, that's big. But for me, still, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Chychrun deal is the biggest. Now, it's hard to argue with what we've seen. Chychrun is having that breakout season, racking up a career 43 points in just 65 games. He leads all defensemen with 6 game-winning goals. He is tied for second power play goals with 5, and has an incredible plus 26 rating at even strength. So that's what I'm talking about. There was a reason that the Capitals brought him in here. And Spencer Carbery also commented on how significant this signing is for the organization, noting that Chychrun has integrated seamlessly into the team with elite skills. And the Capitals have been looking for that for quite some time. A defender that's a good rear guard, but also a guy that has a flair offensively. And Carbery appreciates Chychrun's drive to win and his desire for excellence, making this deal a strategic long-term move for the team. So it's a good move for the Capitals, of course. Talks really heated up after Chychrun received that pivotal call from his agent, which signaled that things were moving toward finalizing the deal. I think the writing was on the wall. Chychrun actually saw Ted Leonsis in a jersey, and what do you know? Shortly thereafter, he got a call from his agent with an offer to be on the team for the next 8 years. And I don't think there's really anything to argue about there. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of term. I've heard this, when I've done the show, people criticize the Tom Wilson deal because of the term and how much money. People have said the same thing about Logan Thompson and the depreciation. Listen, again, that is what you do in modern sports for elite talent, is you kind of give them what they want. And if you don't, well, they will seek out to the greener pastures somewhere else. So I think that Jakob Chychrun, if it had made it to this summer, very well could have walked. He likes the Capitals. He likes the locker room, but the vibes around the team are good because the team is winning. That's another thing, that's oftentimes lost on people talking about the chemistry of the locker room, is would that chemistry be as good within the team if the Capitals were not so good? So I think a winning culture is of paramount importance for the Capitals' success, and why you're able to attract and keep players like a Jakob Chychrun. Because, like I said, if the Capitals were maybe a wild card team right now, I think that maybe Jakob Chychrun would be thinking to himself, yeah, I like it here, but maybe I want to see how it is somewhere else. And maybe that's just me projecting my feelings. At the end of the day, he did play for the Coyotes and he did play for the Senators, two teams that historically have not done really great things. But all things considered, I'm loving this deal. Do I have any reservation? Do I have any feelings of that the Capitals made a mistake about this deal? None. Absolutely none. Is there the possibility, the last 3 years of that contract that it could go poorly? Absolutely. Is there the possibility that could happen with Logan Thompson or Tom Wilson? Those are the risks that you need to take in order to keep and attract elite level talent. As far as Chris Patrick, Brian McClellan no doubt had his hand in it, and the Capitals organization, a huge thing for the Capitals. Like I say, John Carlson, and whoever else in the next 8 years that could come and go, to have just a really rock solid defender like Jakob Chychrun for the next 8 years has me feeling really good. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, where they have you covered 5 days a week, covering all of the news surrounding all of the teams in the NHL, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.